We begin with what's been another fascinating day in the George Zimmerman murder trial. On the stand today for the second day in a row as a so-called star witness for the prosecution, Rachel Gentile, the last person believed to talk to Trayvon Martin before his deadly confrontation. Amid hours of cross-examination from the defense, it was almost impossible to turn away from her animated expressions, combative answers, and often irritated demeanor. Now the big question is this: did she help or hurt the state's case? CNN's Martin Savage has been inside the courtroom all day. He's joining us right now with the very latest. So what happened, Martin?
Well, Rachel Gentile is the kind of witness that journalists love, but also the kind of witness that can be both a nightmare for the prosecution and the defense. And in fact, she probably lived up to that reputation over these past 2 days. However, that said, she did seem to be different today on the stand. Her responses, depending on how you weigh the yes, sir, seemed to have a bit more respect and decorum than when we saw her yesterday. But she also seemed more firm in her answers whenever she was challenged. And remember, she is key as a witness because she is maintaining that, of course, she was on the phone with Trayvon Martin right up to the moment that the confrontation occurred between George Zimmerman and the team. She says that she heard Trayvon say to her, "I'm being followed." Then shortly thereafter, she heard Trayvon say something like, "What are you following me for?" And then she says George Zimmerman said, "What are you doing around here?" Then she heard a bump. She heard the wet grass, which everyone now has been explained apparently by her to say it was a scuffle of some sort. And then she heard Trayvon saying, "Get off, get off." That is all very damaging to the defense, which is why the defense went after her again today. Take a listen.
So he told you that he could see the man again. The man was behind him,
yes,
correct?
Close.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
And if he were hiding somewhere and the man walked close to him, they would be close together, correct?
Argumentative and in fact.
In any event, your sense of it was that they got close together at that point.
He got close to Trayvon. Yes, sir.
And you don't know whether the man was approaching Trayvon at that point and getting closer, or whether Trayvon was approaching the man and getting closer.
Trayvon would have told me he'll call me back, sir, if he was going to approach him, sir.
So you're assuming that Trayvon didn't approach the man because he would have told you if he was going to confront the guy, he would call you back when it was over?
Yes, sir.
That's one of those exchanges, Wolf, where you could feel the tension in the courtroom. Lover or hater, the real question is, what did the jury think? I looked at their faces. Many paid very close attention. Some often were writing notes. We just don't know at this particular.
Trial continues. Savage covering it for us. Thanks very much. Let's dig a little bit deeper right now with our senior legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin, and our legal analyst, Sonny Hostin, in Sanford, Florida. Sonny, first to you. You were inside that courtroom. What's the bottom line? How do you think it played out?
You know, I was in the courtroom and watching the testimony and watching the jurors really closely because it is their opinions that matter, right? I think that they were very engaged. As Martin said, a lot of them were taking notes. They were looking at her, not with a look of confusion as if they didn't understand what she was saying, but engaged and listening. I think that she actually did pretty well, considering the tension that was there and considering the fact that she's a young girl on the stand for the first time being cross-examined by a very skilled attorney. She maintained the same thing throughout. She says George Zimmerman was following Trayvon Martin very closely, that Trayvon said, why are you following me? And that really described George Zimmerman as the initial aggressor, as the pursuer. That is crucial to the state, because after all, George Zimmerman is claiming self-defense. If he is found to have been the first aggressor, if the jury believes Rachel, then I think self-defense is almost off the table here.
You know, Jeffrey, the defense, they have a tough job walking that very, very thin line. They want to undermine her credibility, but if they go too far, that could undermine their defense of George Zimmerman. How do you think they did in that cross-examination?
I think they did better today. You know, I think it's useful to think of Rachel's testimony in two parts. The first part is about her view that Trayvon was saying he was following me, that George Zimmerman was following me. I think her testimony there is very strong and very helpful for the prosecution. But when you get to the actual confrontation, I think her story gets a lot more wobbly. The idea that she could hear Trayvon Martin say, "Get off, get off." Think about that. You know, he's holding a phone. It's such a chaotic situation. And she has told different versions of that part of the story several times. So I think she is definitely a helpful witness for the prosecution, but she doesn't give the prosecution everything they want. And the most important part, the actual confrontation, I'm not sure she helps that much at all.
How much of this trial, Sonny, rests on this one young woman?
She certainly is the star witness in my view, because again, it's about who started this fight, who started this confrontation. I don't think there's any question in anyone's mind that there was a confrontation, but what's most important is how did it begin? If you listen to George Zimmerman, he says that Trayvon Martin came out of nowhere and punched him. If the jury believes that version of events, if the jury hears that version of events, then it's over for the prosecution. But if they hear that version and also hear what and have heard what Rachel has said, and they believe her, then the prosecution is well on its way to a conviction in this case.
Sonny Hostin, thanks very much. Jeffrey, don't go away. I've got some other questions on another case that we're watching as well. Jeffrey Toobin is standing by.